Welcome back to this environmental series on CNC3. My guests today are Frauke Leuning, musician, and Stephen Greenleaf, environmental consultant. We're talking about how the food we eat, the water we drink, and even the pans we play could be killing us. Frauke, I want to come back to this whole issue of poison pans. When you told Pan Trinbago of this, when you informed the companies of this, what was their response?
Yes, but there are no other drums. But they make good puns, you know. So everything is excused because they make good puns. And I don't doubt it, but if you want to develop pun as an industry and as an international export industry, you cannot start with toxic waste. If I make a guitar, I don't start with toxic waste. If I make a trumpet, I don't get something that is poisonous, you know.
So what's the solution then?
What is the solution? I think, I know, for example, there's a pan maker in Germany, of all places. He has a little company that makes drums for him. From the metal he orders, and I put a round top and a sheet around, and I put it together neatly so that it doesn't come loose when you sink it, because that is the problem with the oil drums that you can buy here in Trinidad, the new ones. They often are not stable enough to take all that pounding. So, and when the pan makers go back there and say, look, your drums aren't good, they say, yeah, but look, we don't produce musical instruments, we make containers for fluids, so be quiet, so take what you can get. We need a better facility to put drums together, clean drums, or we need a facility that cleans these toxic waste drums and makes them available for pan makers afterwards. But I think these are the two possibilities. And
yes.
I think it's not so difficult to put two sheets of metal together. I think even in Trinidad that could be done.
And that could save lives. Stephen, I want to come back to this point of quality control. What you were saying earlier about the link between the vegetables we eat. Everybody says vegetables are very, very healthy for you. But now you're saying that if there's no quality control, we actually don't know what kind of pesticides go on our vegetables and what we're ingesting at the end of the day.
That's correct. I've personally witnessed a farmer using, to save some money, instead of getting a WASA connection, he was pumping water out of a roadside drain, which is full of who knows what sort of, asphalt runoff, petrochemical runoff from vehicles, antifreeze, who knows. He was using that to water the crops. I'm not an environmental chemist, but it seems like something that's at least worth looking at. He would then absolutely douse his Bodhi with a mixture of several different pesticides blended together in sort of a cocktail, and I believe there are chemical reactions that can happen when you mix pesticides that no one's really aware of what the health effects of that might be. And the man would just soak his Bodhi with pesticide till it literally dripped, and then cut them straight to market. And I personally wouldn't want to eat that.
So we really shouldn't be surprised at the growing rates of cancer in this country.
Well, there's no reason to assume that the results would be any different in Trinidad than they have been all over the world and well documented in hundreds of case studies that show that how we deal with the environment in general ends up in our bodies. And the good news is there are solutions. It's not all doom and gloom. But I think it's important that people be aware. And there's a cultural thing about Trinidad that's good in this regard. Everybody likes their bush medicine. People like to have a little home garden. And so they're aware, I think more aware than in my culture, for example, of alternative foods, of alternative ways of preparation. So it's a good thing. People, Trinis, tend to really think about this. And that can be used to the advantage of everyone.
Let's talk about water pollution in this country. You were telling me yesterday that actually you wouldn't want to really eat our fish either off our shores.
It depends on where they're from. I try to avoid fish out of the Gulf of Paria, just because most of the industrial development in Trinidad, the rivers that are affected by that tend to drain into the Gulf of Paria, and particularly shellfish and high order fish high up the food chain like tuna, barracuda, kingfish. They're near the top of the food chain. Again, chemicals tend to bioconcentrate. So there's a little bit in the algae and a little bit in the plankton, and then it concentrates into the smaller fish, and it concentrates again as it goes up until you finally we're snacking on a tuna or a big prawn. There's a good chance that that's got heavy metals or carcinogenic chemicals concentrated in it. So even though there's very little in the water, there can end up being a lot in what you're putting on your plate.
What about the water we drink? Is that safe?
That would vary from place to place. Wassa collects water from a number of different sources. Some are out of mountain springs. Wassa has treatment facilities. I'm certainly no expert on how Wassa processes the water that comes to you, but certainly it's still a good thing to be aware of and to ask yourself, where is my water coming from and how is it handled?
Frauke, you know, you've been sending us all sorts of photos, some whimsical and some very sad, like
Yes.
in Woodford Square where it was filled with litter after a political meeting, and then the one with the organic cars, the rusted cars where there was overgrown green on them, and you said that that's a good factory for us to have. What interests you about our environment?
It just jumps into my face, and when I have a camera, I have to take pictures. I don't know, it is just me, but with the cars, when I saw these cars, I really laughed. I
Yes.
thought, wow, this can't be true. And then I came up with this story. And funny enough, in Amsterdam, where I live, somebody once had rented a parking space in front of his house, took the top of his car and started to grow a garden in his car. And the municipality tried to remove this car, and he said, no, but I'm paying my parking duties, so you cannot remove my car. I've decided I want to have a garden in my car.